Cool. So, welcome back to Sign This Please, the podcast where we explore the world of autographs, stories from collectors, agents, athletes. Sometimes we get into the darker side of the hobby. Today's episode, unlike any other one, we're sitting down with a convicted forger, Cliff Panezich, who once made a living faking the very autographs that a lot of us are running around chasing. He opens up about how he got started, the techniques he used, and the business behind the lies. But most importantly, we're going to dive into the recent FBI raid involving another very high-profile forger, and we're going to get Cliff's take on how deep this problem still runs in today's market. We're going to take a rare behind-the-scenes look at the deception that shaped parts of the autograph world, and it's ultimately a cautionary tale for collectors. So let's get into it. I want to welcome Cliff Panezich. Cliff, thank you so much for getting on here for a few minutes. I appreciate your time.
Of course, no problem.
Real quick, give us your story in a nutshell. Tell people exactly who you are and what got you here.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll start with, I didn't just wake up one day and roll out of bed and devise this scheme of what my crime became. So, I was a professional baseball player. I played some professional ball coming out of school. The autograph business was really my side hustle, like through college, through my off season while I was training for my pro career. Unfortunately, my pro career got derailed due to an injury. But while I'm going through rehab and my off season and training, the autograph industry was really my hustle, how I supported myself financially. And back then, which would have been years like 2008, 9, 10, I'm out out in the wild, as you would say, like at the stadiums, at the hotels, paying college players. Interesting part of my story is that I knew about the Johnny Manziel signing in Miami, 12 years ago, because I had money in that signing. So I knew it went down. I knew the people that did it. That's all like come to light in the last couple of years. Well, I was involved in it, 12 years ago. So I was very much like it was a legitimate operation. Then I kind of took the raw end of a deal. I got scammed, if you would say, and that's kind of when I crossed the line to kind of recoup my losses. And then from there, it just snowballed to where it snowballed completely out of control. Other people got involved, and the scheme, the crime, whatever, just grew to kind of epic proportions to where obviously feds get involved and it's a criminal case, and obviously I spent some time in prison, but. That's not to. I always kind of say that's not to paint myself as a victim or an excuse, or I'm very self-aware of the lines I crossed and the crimes I committed. But there's always kind of reasons why it happened, why I dabbled, and why I crossed over that gray line. And now that I'm on the back end of it, I don't mind talking about my knowledge of what's going on, because really it was someone else or a different scammer that got me that crossed over the line. So, I really was involved I was involved in the industry legitimately. And if the industry could be fixed, I would be a proponent for it. I just don't believe it can.
You really think we're kind of heading down the drain?
Yeah, I mean, and it's, I talked about this on another podcast just yesterday. And, part of the problem is I would say this. If you had, and we'll just use Bryce Harper as an example. If you had a Bryce Harper signed baseball that was authentic, but had no COA, and you had a JSA Bryce Harper that was fake, but it had a JSA certificate, which is worth more? The Bryce Harper that has the JSA certificate.
Sure.
And that's part of the problem, is that, the reality of the market is there aren't many people that are just collectors, right? Because to me, if I was just a collector, when I track down these athletes, I wouldn't be asking for an autograph. I'd be asking for a picture with them to put on my mantle. Everybody associates the autograph with the value, and now the value is associated with these companies like JSA, like PSA, like Beckett. So the reality is, it doesn't even matter if the item's authentic. It just matters if JSA, PSA, or Beckett says it's authentic.
Right.
And then the value's there. So, to somebody that's in the industry, which, is a dealer or a flipper or even a collector that buys and sells and turns over their collection, Do they really care if it's authentic? They just care if it has the monetary value that goes with it. And that's kind of the bigger picture of why the industry, to me, can't be fixed.
Right. It's kind of upside down that way, unfortunately.
Right. Absolutely.
So I want to jump right into this whole thing with this whole FBI raid a week or two ago. I mean, you've obviously been following the case. You obviously know all about it. What was your initial reaction when you heard about it?
I mean, I don't want to say I laughed like it's funny and comical, because it's not, and especially because we're dealing with loss of life. So there's nothing really funny about it, but just kind of a "I told you so" type moment, right? Because when my case went on, like, the feds had a lot of information that would have kind of blown the top off the entire industry, and I was willing to, divulge even more information. And nobody on the law enforcement side was really interested in going any further than just getting their convictions. So when it circles back around and another case like this comes out, it's just kind of like, "I told you so." I knew it was coming. And until someone on that side of it takes it super serious to where they're trying to, blow the lid off the entire industry, it's just going to keep happening. Someone else is going to replace him, and so forth and so on.
So do you think I mean, obviously, do you think this guy's the only one that was out there doing it? Or are there other guys that are just right now flying under the radar?
No, for everyone that gets caught, there's probably, I don't even know, 20 to 50 others that don't get caught. I mean,
You think it's that rampant?
oh yeah, I mean, the industry's so convoluted and not regulated correctly that if I wanted to start again tomorrow, I could, and no one would know. Like, that's just the reality of it, and it's a shame. And obviously, that's a world I would never dabble in, never want to dabble in. But it's that easy. It's really that easy.
Wow, that's interesting. I obviously you don't catch the only guy that's doing it. I know there's probably other people doing it. I just didn't. I mean, you probably know better than I do, but I didn't think there were that many. Um, I mean, I'm around these shows all the time. I see these guys constantly. I know the guys that have been doing it a little bit, and I know the guys that I question. Um, but again, I question the amount.
Oh
Which
yeah,
leads.
so let me
Go
touch
ahead.
on that, because that's one thing I'll touch on is, um the amount is fabricated. It's whatever he's talking, millions of items, or 300 to 500 million dollars. That's just not feasible. So when I talk about it, like, I know how many forgeries I produced, and granted, I did it by hand. There was no auto pen involved.
Mhm.
But at the peak of what I was doing, I could sit down with a stack of 200 photos of 1 to 200 different players and never look at an example. I just knew all the signatures, and would blow them out one after one after one. When he's talking about doing that many signatures because he has an auto pen, the amount of time it would take just to switch the item on the auto pen, to put a
Right.
hologram on the item, to list the item, to ship the item, the amount that he's talking is just not even in the realm of possibilities. Not even from a market standpoint, from like what it would have done to dilute the market and the value, but
Right.
just from the time aspect of it. So was the operation that they were involved in obviously massive and millions and millions and millions of dollars? Oh, absolutely. Do I
Right.
think it dabbles into the hundreds of millions realm? Like, no. I mean, are we talking an operation that was 100x bigger than mine? Like, no, it's just not possible. There's not enough hours in the
Right.
day.
That was a big part that I took out of this were the numbers this guy was talking about. When he said the one that kind of put me over the edge was when Kobe passed. He said he put out, according to his little manifesto that he put out on Facebook, 80,000 pieces he flooded the market with.
Yeah, I mean,
I know what 80,000 autographs looks like.
exactly,
Like you said, that's
exactly.
impossible.
When we're talking about my crime, and obviously there's no way to know an exact number, but they talk about like 25 to 35,000 items over a 5-year period, and this guy's talking about 80,000 items in whatever,
Based
a
on one
couple of
guy. Right.
yeah, up one guy in a couple of
In a
months.
couple
Like,
months. Right.
yeah, it's just not possible. It doesn't matter what kind of infrastructure you have, unless literally a robot it was doing the whole thing. Which an auto pen obviously can produce a signature, but there's still a manual aspect of it, of selling the item, shipping the item, the holograms, everything like that. So
Right.
the numbers he's putting on it just isn't real. But obviously, it was still massive and damning to the industry.
Right. This guy took this to another level, right? When he's talking about, he wasn't just duping the autographs, he was actually duping the holograms that companies like Steiner and TriStar and even Fanatics are putting on their pieces. Now, people are trained, people like myself that go out and collect autographs. And I'll be honest with you, I can tell you point blank, I've never bought an autograph secondhand. That I've honestly never done. I've seen 99% of my stuff get done in person. But you've got people out there that obviously, like, that we're dealing with you, that buy through eBay, that buy through second party and third party people. I think what this guy did by somehow manipulating that to that extreme is just, it's mind blowing, right? It's one thing to forge the autograph, but to then turn around and forge it with a certification hologram that goes on that piece is just another level. I mean, what'd you think when you saw that?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously, when there's that type of money involved, like anything's possible, right? And to me, what he did is probably as simple as jumping on something like a Fiverr, or finding somebody in China that's selling counterfeit merchandise that's going to replicate these holograms. It's people don't necessarily equate it all the same, but it's really the same crime or same market as selling fake Jordans or fake Gucci clothes, fake designer clothes. It's the same crime, really. Um, all the counterfeiting's the same. So, and it's all going to come from the same market, which is China. So finding somebody in that realm that has the capabilities of producing these holograms, to me, I don't think would be very difficult.
Were you surprised that the FBI got involved at the way they did? Do you believe that this thing happened quickly, or do you think this was a something that was taking place over months and years and just finally got to the point where it was?
Yeah, no, it was probably a long, drawn out, a lot of investigation going on for it to come to a head. Like I was under surveillance for probably 12 months before anything,
Really?
before a raid happened at my house. So it's probably a long, drawn out process. And of course the feds are involved. It's a big news story. So my issue with it from the criminal side of it, again, is, when my case came to light, there was an opportunity to take the information and run with it in a big way, and kind of, like I said, blow the top off the industry and kind of reveal what's actually going on. And once they got the conviction on me, it just kind of, there was a little Sports Illustrated article, there was some news station articles, and then 3 to 6 months down the road, it's just kind of swept under the rug, goes away,
Right.
and that's it. Nothing else is going on. And to me, this is probably going to be the same unless people kind of like yourself and other people on social media stand up and keep making a big deal about it. An interesting thing I said the other day, again, I just did another interview yesterday with Sports Cards Nonsense, was when this happened, when the story came out, I reached out to 2 people on Twitter, Darren Ravel, who actually dropped my news story on ESPN 10 years ago. He covered it. Just, it was a small snippet, but I reached out to him and Steve Grad, just on Twitter, shot them a message or replied to a tweet and was like, hey, here's who I am. I'd be willing to talk about this and shed some light on, what I think went on, whatever information I can provide. Steve Grad, who obviously benefits from the industry and is involved in the autograph, third-party authentication, never responded. And Darren Ravel was in my DM sending me his phone number in 30 seconds. We had like a 45-minute conversation that night about what was going on. But you take someone, Darren Ravel is in the media and just covering what's going on, and you take someone like Steve Grad, who to me is still trying to protect the integrity of third-party authentication.
Kind of along those lines, do you think that the FBI went to companies like Fanatics, went to JSA, went to Brandon Steiner when all this was kind of going on, that maybe led up to this?
I mean, I've heard now that the I've dug in a little bit and heard some rumblings and whatever. I've heard that Fanatics is really the ones pushing law enforcement to crack down. So while I don't necessarily think it's probably difficult to duplicate the holograms, and you can probably find someone in China, once you start doing that, when you're dabbling with these companies' pockets, who are massive companies, right. That's probably what tipped off the investigation.
I think I read somewhere 2 or 3 days ago that during this process, about 6 months ago, Fanatics actually changed their hologram. Didn't alert anybody, didn't tell anybody, but somehow, some way. Now, I haven't seen it, but the National Collectors Convention is about 7 or 8 days away in Chicago, and I'll be there for the whole thing. And I do plan on walking around trying to see if I can kind of uncover some truth behind that. If there is older holograms as opposed to newer ones that are a different style or color, I don't know. There was no information. It just said that six months ago or so that they changed their hologram, and I was just curious if you had heard anything along those lines.
No, so all I can say is, like, I'm really since my release, since my crime, whatever, I'm really have nothing to do with the industry. I don't care to, I don't want to. To me, it's so beyond repair. Not just the autograph industry, but the sports card industry, the grading industry. It's all just in disarray, and to me is one big scam. So I have nothing to do with it. So I haven't heard that or know anything about that or seen it. But to me, just knowing what I know, if they up and change their hologram randomly without telling anybody, then they knew this was coming, and they were probably involved with the investigation, and they tried to get out in the forefront of it. And just like, again, I touched on Steve Grad, and obviously I don't know him personally, and I would honestly say he's probably one of the good guys in the industry, right? And he's doing everything the right way, but there's probably a lot of knowledge that he has that he's not going to reveal or divulge because he wants to protect the integrity of the industry.
Right.
So now that this story comes out, all these guys like Fanatics, Steve Grau, whatever, they want to get out in front of it and, say things like, we've changed our hologram, or we've changed these security measures, or we've done this, or we've done that. But the reality of it is they've probably known what was going on, not just for months, but for years. And they don't want to divulge that information because of the negative effect on the industry.
Right. What advice would you give somebody who's a collector of autographs on how they should kind of proceed with caution, or how they should go about shopping for their autographs?
I mean, you already touched on it. You said it yourself. You said 99% of the autographs you have, you saw signed in person. That's the only foolproof way to go about it. So I touched on, it's either that, you got to see it in person, or, have a proxy that you trust that's at an event that sees it in person.
Right.
Other than that, there is no way. I touched on, I think the way to possibly fix the industry is, AI needs to be involved in my opinion. Why is everything, all these things that are subjective, such as autograph authentication, card grading, why is it still done by a human that, can be subjective about it? Why is it not done by a computer that has no emotion, no feeling towards it?
It's a fantastic point.
Yeah,
It really is.
Except once you turn the industry into an app on your phone that costs whatever, $5, $10, even $100, instead of a grading service that costs $100 per item.
Right.
Well, now the industry's turned upside down, and all these multi-million, billion-dollar companies no longer need to exist. So it'll never happen. It'll never happen because the powers to be that control the market won't let it happen.
Right. So do you think the industry will ever change enough to the point where these guys, like you just said, maybe we won't need certain things? Do you think the industry will ever change and prevent this from happening again, at least to this magnitude?
No, I don't think there's any way the industry comes out of it. I mean, you just look at something like the sports card market, which we're shifting from in-person autographs to sports cards a little bit, but to me, it's all the same. It's the same niche, same market. And you look at what's going on with that. To me, is the same thing that went on with the '90s, which is supply and demand. There's more demand, so just make more. Well, that's what they're doing nowadays. But instead of just mass producing base sets, now they're slapping the 101 moniker on it and releasing 101 this, 101 that, 101
A
this.
purple one, a blue one, an orange one. It's the same card, just different colors and 101.
Exactly. And to me, it's not entirely different than what somebody like myself did, which is I'm filling a supply on the market by producing these counterfeit forgeries to meet market demand based on price, whatever. And they're doing the same thing. They're just operating within the realm of legalities because somebody somehow gave them, free reign to do whatever they want. So they're like, we want to print more money. We'll just make a new subset with a new 101 and chase another 101 Paul Skeens. And there you go. Now we just made, X amount of millions of dollars. You see it with Tops. Tops started this Tops Now every time there's an event. A big event. Otani hits 50-50. Now there's a Tops Now event. Or
Tops Now.
Yeah, and everyone's chasing a 101 and this and that. Well, you just have free reign to just mass produce whatever you want. Well, it's the same thing I was doing, except, what I did was illegal, and they have free reign to operate within the realm of legalities, even though, the morality of it or the ethics of it, to me, is about the same.
To kind of go back on something you said about the way the industry's changing. The industry's definitely changing. It's definitely shifted from memorabilia to cards. Because like I said, I've been doing shows since late 80s, early 90s. And it used to be you'd walk into a show and there'd be 100 tables of dealers. And 90 of those tables were guys selling memorabilia, mini helmets, footballs, photographs. I don't see anybody selling photographs anymore. It's unbelievable. And I think that's just because of the price structure.
Yeah, I was going to say, to me, it's all, it's all value. If you go get a Victor Wembanyama on a basketball, there's a certain price point that's going to max out at, whether it be 500, 1,000.
Right. It's going to stay in that little window.
Right. There's a range of where it's going to fall. You produce a one-of-one Victor Wembanyama that comes out of a some wax box that costs $3,000, and now the 101's worth $500,000. Everyone's going to chase it. So it's just it's the price, And again, that goes back to the very first thing we opened with is how many collectors, how many real collectors are in the industry where they're going out searching for these autographs or these cards because they want to display them on their wall, on their mantle. They want to give them to their kids, whatever. There's not many in comparison to the people that attach the value to it. To me, again, if I was a true collector, when I meet somebody that I might have admiration for, I'm not asking for an autograph. I'm asking for a picture with them. But that picture doesn't hold any monetary value to anyone but me.
But you, right. But that's kind of the sense of a true collector, like you said. It's
but how many people are doing that?
No, because there's no monetary value to it. And the majority of people out there are looking for that monetary value. Do you think this is going to stop people from chasing autographs? Do you think it's going to hurt the industry? Long term, I think it's going to hurt it short term. But what about long term?
Yeah, same thing. Short term, not long term, because I talked about yesterday. I was hesitant to start doing these interviews a little bit, because since my 3 years since my release, I've went on these Facebook groups and I try and help people. I try and offer like some advice, some insight, if I think an item's not real or how it might not be real or how some of these scams are run. And more times than not, it's just met with negativity. It's either it goes back to, my crime and I'm just a felon and I don't know anything, or it's met with arrogance and ignorance as if they know more than me. And and at the end of it, you know, uneducated buyers is what facilitates the crime.
Right.
So, you know, if buyers were educated more, you know, some of this would have to slow down, but there's no changing that. And part of it is ignorance and arrogance, and part of it is, you know, I think just a blind eye to it, not wanting to believe that the industry is this convoluted with scams and forgeries.
Right. Can I jump backwards a little bit? And I'm really curious just to find out from you, when you were in the middle of what you were doing, how did you decide who to forge? Like,
It was all based on market
all hot
value.
market?
So, yeah, you know, so the best example I can give, and this was early on in the kind of in the infancy of when I kind of crossed that line, was Dallas Braden threw a perfect game on Mother's Day, and that night I had 20 Dallas Braden balls for sale. So it's really just based on market and what's hot, and that's why. Same thing with the sports cards industry is, you know, why is the up and coming hot prospect worth more than Willie Mays? Well,
Right.
so I didn't dabble in selling, you know, deceased players, Mickey Mantle, Babe Ruth. I didn't have to. I'd rather sell, you know, 20 Bryce Harpers that was not even going to have a spotlight on, that nobody was even going to notice. I'd rather sell 20 of those for $100 than try and sell
Sure.
one Babe Ruth for 2,000. It was easy, and market dictated it. And whatever's hot, hottest on the market had the most uneducated buyers, unfortunately.
I was just like, that was for me. That was for myself. I was just curious how you made that determination, and it 100% makes sense. Last thing, give your best advice to somebody, when they're looking at an autograph. What are they looking for? How do they tell if it's a forgery or not? Is there a way to tell? I mean, if it's a good forgery, are you just kind of screwed?
Yeah, I mean, again, we go back to see it done in person by yourself is the only surefire way. I'll say this is that, you know, obviously being on my side of it is the more complex the signature, the less likely it is that it was forged. I never did Derek Jeter. Never. No reason to.
Too many
Uh, yeah, it's too complex. I never did Ken Griffey Jr. No reason to. So the more complex the signature, uh, the if it's one pen stroke, it makes it harder. So players that sign, you know, Bryce Harper early in his career, with the big B, the big H, it was like 10 different pen strokes. Super
Right.
easy to forge. So you find a player that has a signature like that, unfortunately, that's what forgers are gonna kind of go towards, because it's just the easiest to duplicate and the easiest to not be noticed. Other than that, you're looking for things like stops in the pen. You know, so if there's a small spot in the autograph where it looks like the pen might have stopped or it might have hesitated, that's a tall tale sign. But any good forger is gonna either not do a signature where they have to stop, or they're gonna be good enough to not have to stop. So really, it goes back to what you said: is you got to see it in person, see it yourself.
Okay. Last one. If you could speak directly to the guy that was just, obviously we can't speak directly to him. If you could speak directly to him, what would you say to him?
Wow, I mean, I would say, you know, there's no obviously no excuse for what we did, but there's always underlying reasons, you know, of how it's facilitated. So, you know, I understand that he probably got in a very small capacity, thinking like, let me get in, get out, and then it just snowballed out of his control. And it's yeah, and you know, there was, speaking for myself, you know, there were days I woke up dreading to look at my phone because I knew there was going to be 10 or 20 guys that messaged me asking for items that they needed to sell. And I knew there was to a point where there was no way out of it other than, you know, some kind of criminal investigation and probably going to prison. And that's the unfortunate reality of it is once you get so far in, there's really no way out. And I can understand how, you know, it probably snowballed out of control for him. And unfortunately, again, like none of this is serious enough to be the severity of loss of life, right? Nothing is worth the
Right.
loss of life, no monetary value. And what's unfortunate about it is I'm sure there's going to be people in the industry that are on message boards and they say things like he deserved to die and whatever. And that's not true. It's not valid. He deserved punished. Obviously, there was going to be prison time involved, whatever. But loss of life is, that's serious, and there's no amount of money that equates to that. So, but I just understand. I understand. Not to make an excuse for it, but I understand.
So for you, was it an addiction? Did it just become an addiction? Whether it was the addiction to the money?
I mean, yeah, it was. I say this. So I probably had two addictions in my life, which nothing substance wise. It was always competition and attention, and my baseball career fulfilled both of those.
Okay.
And when I lost my baseball career, if you could imagine doing something for 22 years of your life and then your body kind of taking that away from you, I was just in a really weird space in my own life where I didn't know what to do with my life. I didn't know who I was. I lost my identity. This crime started to facilitate itself, and I became addicted to the attention and competition that provided. Which to me, the competition was gambling, sports betting, and the attention was like kind of the going out and the partying and going out with an entourage and all that. I did all that, and that's what kind of caused the crime to continue what it was. People think I had some stash of money overflowing, and I spent the money as quick as I made the money, and that's what caused the crime to continue operating. Was the money came in, the money got spent, go make some more.
Just go make more.
Yeah, and when it became a revolving door where you have the knowledge that I'm pretty much printing money out of my bedroom, it's very easy for it to snowball out of control.
Crazy.
And again, that's not to make an excuse for what I did. I'm no victim here. I'm no victim. It's not an excuse. I deserve the punishment I got, but that's just to say there's always underlying reasons, and I understand how it can snowball.
Right. No, listen. After everything that happened and everything that you went through, you stood up like a man. You served your sentence, and hopefully, I don't know what you're doing now currently, but hopefully you can make a positive impact somewhere for somebody because of the journey that you had to go on. So, got my fingers crossed for you.
And obviously, I did. You're close with Ian Bick. You know him. I did that podcast, so I'm very much involved in like prison reform, reintegration, and probably the biggest purpose I feel I have in life right now is I'm very involved in rescuing dogs. I have the shirt on right now, so I'm gonna touch on it. Adopt a dog, save a life.
Nice.
So I have 4 puppies at home that I rescued. If you're somebody, yourself, anybody out there listening, if you're trying to get a dog, go adopt a dog, save a life. Don't go buy a dog from a pet store. So,
well, I know you're in Vegas, and I got a buddy of mine that lives out in Vegas, and I think he's rescued like 4 of them already too.
Yeah, I have. It's my dogs run my house, and I just happen to stay there. So, but I'm all right. I'm all right with that.
That's awesome, Cliff. Listen, man, I appreciate the time. I know you're a busy guy doing a million different things. I can't even thank you enough for the time you just gave me. I
appreciate you having me on. If there's a follow-up or anything, I'm always down to do that too. So, like I said, I think part of my retribution, I guess, or repentance, whatever you want to call it, is, trying to shed some light, some information, some knowledge to the people that'll listen. And hopefully this crime being uncovered opens some more eyes and some more ears for more people to actually listen, because it wasn't heard when my crime happened. It wasn't being heard when I got out. But hopefully now this was big enough magnitude that some people are going to want to listen.
Right. Let's hope so. All right, buddy. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'll talk to you soon.
Yep, have a good one.
You too. Well, that was our conversation with a man who once fooled the entire autograph world and now offers a pretty sobering reminder of how easy it can still happen. Whether you're a seasoned collector or just getting started, let this episode be a reminder. Know who you're buying from, ask questions, and when something feels too good to be true, it probably is. We'll see you next time on Sign This, Please.